What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video, and in this video we're going to be breaking down the best region in all of Valorant, and it's none other than Korea. Specifically, we're going to be breaking down Vision Strikers, which is notoriously known as not just one of the best teams in Korea, but potentially one of the best teams in the entire world. I mean, this region is just completely built different. So let's break it all down so that we can learn exactly what makes the Korean region so competitive, and some tips and tricks that we can start incorporating into our games to give us a leg up on the competition. But go to the GameLeap website right now, the link's down below for in-depth VODs, advanced character guides, map guides. I mean, we got it all on the GameLeap website, so do yourself a favor, go check it out right now. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now we're going to be breaking down a game that Vision Strikers had on actual Icebox, but keep in mind that there have been some slight modifications to the Icebox map since then, but they are not going to change any of the tips. In fact, everything is still extremely viable, and there's tons of insight that we can learn from the way that Vision Strikers plays this map. So right off the bat, we're going to break down where Vision Strikers Omen is actually going to put a hide-walled smoke at the opening of the actual default mid zone going into the actual B side, and then he's gonna teleport up on top of these big metal frames. Now this is absolutely genius because it blocks off the enemy from being able to look directly up unless they swing out, and if they do, they have to look so high up to see the Omen that his jet that's having that perfect cross angle on the low ground, they couldn't block them both, or they couldn't guard both angles. And this is an amazing position for you Omen players that have no idea where to play, specifically on Icebox. He does this over and over again, and we're gonna be breaking down more times when he does this and then more. Now he's going to use this position to easily get 2 kills, and he does get traded out eventually because he gets a little greedy, but getting that numbers advantage is amazing. And as a big takeaway for you, Vision Strikers is going to constantly be contesting this area. They're not going to give it up for free without actually putting a lot of resistance, which is the complete opposite of what you're going to see in Ranked, where people just really back away from this area really quickly, but you missed a lot of opportunities to take this high ground or have an aggressive ability-based play, which we're going to break down in a second. Now after the fact, the enemy is going to rotate off to A, and you can notice how Vision Strikers' use of Cypher here is actually amazing and brings a lot of actual calm direction to that A side take that can seem extremely chaotic from a defensive perspective sometimes. Actually, not just sometimes. Honestly, a lot of us just feel completely lost on the Icebox map no matter how we're playing it. So this camera, what it does, this passive-based anti-aggressive camera, really gives him a clear understanding of the space that enemies have to take in order to swing the people on point. And it's not an aggressive camera that's going to get shot very easily, but it's going to give him all the information he needs, and it's something that I would highly suggest if you're playing Cypher. Now this also points out one of the big problems that Vision Strikers never does, but a lot of players do, is they will constantly be peeking the angles of the high ground of the attackers on A on Ascent. The reason that this is such a bad idea is because there's one, so many different angles that you could be shot from, and two, the enemy have natural high ground, so instead they're gonna set up a cross angle on point where enemies literally have to physically swing onto point, and then the enemies are the ones that have to deal with the high ground, all the crazy angles, and of course these really powerful crossfires that basically never allow them to get out unscathed. Now Cypher is actually going to be playing back of sight with his Breach, and Breach can always set up a blind based on any information the camera gets. So enemies push onto point, the camera gets information, the Breach can blind, and the Cypher and Breach can swing. It all works in perfect matrimony. Now also, they're going to be using frenzies, and that's going to work really well when enemies have to push into this really tight point. Frenzies are going to be absolutely amazing, and it allows them to get a lot of really easy kills and actually trade out very simply. Now all in all, Vision Strikers had a pretty successful round, not only stopping enemies with their push B, but also preventing them from actually planting on A. It was really just a well-played round in every single aspect. Now moving on to the next clip that I wanted to show you, the A side is going to be pushed really hard again, and the Cypher camera this time was mixed up to a different spot, but unfortunately gets destroyed instantly because enemies were ready for it. Now I want you to really take notice of this crossfire by Vision Strikers. Breach is on the high ground, Cypher's down low behind the box. You see, a 50-50 angle like this is actually a nightmare to deal with for the enemy. They have to worry about the high ground, they have to worry about rafters, and of course they have to worry about this cross angle angle that is really difficult to swing out and challenge. Now, at this point, you could be constantly mixing up the cross angles that you're taking and the way you're engaging. Sometimes you have a passive cam and then you engage on them with breaches flash. Sometimes you have a really passive angle where both of you are holding a cross of each other, and you can constantly be mixing that up. You never need to be challenging these high grounds from really far away unless you have an op or something, and that is the #1 mistake that players make. A lot of times on Icebox, you see players actually challenge really aggressively. They end up getting killed by the enemy, and then the enemy get to take the site for free because there's no one to contest it, and then your rotators have to actually retake when the spike is already planted. That is a terrible scenario, and that is one that Vision Strikers never put themselves in, and I absolutely love it. Now, we're gonna really break down this next clip that shows us just the power of using abilities to not only chain together like a traditional combo, but consistently put pressure on the enemy over and over again to get a pretty fair and definitive amount of value. You're gonna see that Vision Strikers actually does a very aggressive defensive B congestion with the breach flashing and the jet dashing in to try to catch the enemy off guard. Now, the enemy actually have a counter strat ready for this in a concussion with their breach, and that actually just shows the high level of ability use and ability counterplay we see from Korea that we really don't see from anywhere else. Now, that being said, if this wasn't enough, at the same time, Vision Striker Sova is actually going to tag the enemy mid with a recon from mid and make them back up to contest mid for a second. This is a smattering of abilities. This is a battle of abilities and not just gunplay. Then after the Vision Striker's jet kills the mirroring jet, Breach is going to follow her up again with another flash, and she's going to be able to swing and kill the Breach as well. Now, Vision Striker's jet might get a little bit too greedy here and die, but the plays and the synergy were absolutely amazing. You see a flash with an aggressive dash, with a recon arrow followed by more flashes and more pushes. You can see the cascade of abilities that put pressure on the enemy, set up for a really proactive defensive congestion, and created a numbers advantage outside of some of the mistakes the Vision Strikers made after the fact. But you can really see a frame for the potential here, and a lot of times when you see ability-based combos in NA or even EU, you see really passive, very basic combos like, oh, I'm gonna flash under hell and I'm gonna go challenge it. You don't see flash plus dash plus recon. You don't see this combination of multiple abilities together to create a really aggressive defensive play in the abstract that is gonna get you value. It's usually like to retake space or do something really simple, but Korea is actually thinking like 5 steps ahead of that already. Now, all in all, you can really see what Vision Strikers does on this map that is so difficult to deal with. First off, they have an Omen on the high ground on that B side on those crates that is really difficult to challenge because of the way he smokes and the angle that he holds. And of course, at any moment, they always have random aggressive mix-ups with Breach or Jet, and you never know when that's gonna happen, and it really disincentivizes you from pushing B altogether, where you have to just play around all these different things. And then you go on over to the A site and you have a really annoying passive rat Cypher that has this passive camera that if you ever want to push onto site, you have these 2 cross angles that you just really don't know how to deal with, and this is really how Vision Strikers locks down Icebox extremely well and effectively. Now, that being said, of course, what the other team decides to do is push mid, because if they can't push A and they can't push B, they gotta push somewhere, right? So they're actually gonna do something really interesting here that I really like, and it kind of personifies the way that the Korean meta actually takes engagements. The Vision Striker's Breach is going to have a cross angle contesting mid ramps, but he's going to get jumped on by an ulting jet from mid ramp, and he's going to get Breach flashed at the same time. Now, I'm going to revisit that in a second, but afterwards, that kill is going to get traded out, and this is a really important centerpiece for the way that Vision Strikers plays in general, and they make sure that every kill is traded. They either have people that have direct line of sight to each other, or they're in areas that they can quickly get in direct line of sight to each other, so it's very easy to trade out a kill, and they almost make it so that no kill goes untraded. And you combine that with some of these proactive ability use plays, and you just create that numbers advantage that allows you to win round after round. Now, next up in this play, they're going to be taking mid, and then they're going to rush around to the right side of A to really punish the Cypher's effectiveness and get a kill on him for free, because they just really want to clear out this Cypher without challenging the angles that he normally holds, because they're having a really hard time actually threatening him here. Now that being said, because they know that the actual Sova was there to trade out for the Jet, they know where he relatively is. Actually, the Sage on the enemy team is actually going to know this and actually deny the Sova from swinging from heaven to refrag with the slow orb. There's just so much insane abilities from all sides, people thinking about the position of every single person and using an appropriate ability to basically prevent that interaction. Now let's talk about the big Korean takeaways that we can learn from all of this footage and just the insanity that is Korean Valorant right now. The first and most important thing that you need to understand is that abilities are the centerpiece for every single engagement. Why take a 50-50 knife versus AR duel where you can have the enemy flashed instead, and then on top of that put pressure behind them with an arrow? You have consistent, repeatable ability pressure, and that is the static value behind every single gunfight, and as long as you incorporate that every single time, you're going to be able to get kills even against enemies that might be hitting their shots a little bit better that day, or even better, they never even get a chance to fight back fairly, and that is the pinnacle of what this is all about. Now the next big takeaway that you need to understand is that crosses for easy refrags or unfair 50-50s are pretty much the golden standard for the way that you want to position. Holding each angles and consistently getting that refrag and not challenging really far away angles or high ground angles that give you a positional disadvantage, or never challenge a single fight that is a true 50-50 unless you have to. You want to always put yourself up with an advantage, whether it's the angle you're holding, the teammates that are with you, or just your abilities in general. Now the last thing is the third takeaway, and it's just the understanding or the value in the high ground. A lot of times these Korean teams will actually rotate to the high ground or do things on purpose to set them up with a high ground position, and you see that a lot specifically with Vision Striker's Omen, but all over the place. The high ground gives you information advantage, it gives you gunfight advantage, and it gives you a way to deny LOS on a whim, and it's something that is always worth contesting or fighting for positionally as a team. Now the enemy Korean team actually had a lot of trouble dealing with this Cypher strategy, and I do think that it looks like an absolute nightmare between the Cypher and the Omen. Maybe incorporating something like a raise in the mix could be a really useful tool to actually flush out that Cypher and clear that site, but definitely let me know what you think about this entire video in the comments down below. But go to the GameLeap website right now for in-depth VOD reviews, advanced tips and tricks, map guide, agent guide. We got it all on the GameLeap website, so do yourself a favor, go check it out in the links down below, and happy Christmas. That's all I got for you today. Thanks so much for coming by. I'm Coach Mills, and of course, until next time,